Once upon a time, in parts of Zamfara, the land was everything. It was history, and the future. It didn't start with gunshots. It started with silence. Musa, a farmer whose hands were as rough as the bark of the neem trees lining his compound, stood at the edge of his field. The silence was wrong. Usually, at this hour, the air would be filled with the lowing of cattle being driven to the streams, the shouts of the young herders, and the distant hum of motorcycles ferrying traders to the market. Today, the fields were empty. Real quick. Stories like this are happening all around us, often in silence. My goal is to give them a voice. If you want to be part of that journey and never miss a case, hit the subscribe button. You won't want to miss what I'm working on next. Alright, let's get back to it. They took 6 more last night, a voice said behind him. Musa turned to see Bello, the local head of the Yang Sokai, the volunteer vigilante group formed by the youths of the village. Bello was young, too young to carry the heavy, locally made Dane gun slung over his shoulder. The weapon was a crude assembly of pipes and wood, held together by sheer will and black tape, firing lead balls that were more likely to maim than kill. Who? Musa asked, though he knew the answer. The boys from the forest, Bello spat, looking toward the dense tree line of the Rugu forest that bordered their lands. They came in the dark. No guns, just machetes and sticks. They beat the herder, Ibrahim, until he couldn't walk, and drove the cows into the bush. That is 20 cows in 1 week, Baba Musa. 20. In the village square later that afternoon, the tension was palpable. The heat was oppressive, sitting on the skin like a wet blanket. The elders sat on mats, their faces etched with worry, while the young men, the Yang Sokai, paced around them, angry and restless. We cannot wait for the police, Bello declared, his voice rising above the murmurs. The divisional police officer in the town says he has no fuel for his vehicle. He says we should file a report. A report will not bring back Ibrahim's cows. A report will not feed our children. An elder, Malam Garba, raised a trembling hand. We must be careful, my sons. Violence brings violence. If we follow them into the forest, we start a war we do not understand. They have already started the war. Bello shouted, and the young men roared in agreement. They steal our wealth today. Tomorrow they will steal our wives. We must show them that Maradan is not a place for thieves. We go tonight. The decision was made not by consensus, but by the rage of the youth. The Yang Sokai prepared for their patrol. There were no bulletproof vests, no radios, no night vision goggles. They wore lucky charms, layers, sewn into leather pouches around their waists and arms, believing these would turn the skin to iron against knives and bullets. They carried machetes, clubs, and the few Dane guns they had crafted from scrap metal. Night fell, bringing a darkness so absolute it felt like being underwater. The group of 20 men moved into the bush, tracking the hoofprints of the stolen cattle. The silence of the forest was unnerving. Every rustle of dry leaves sounded like an ambush. Hours passed. The adrenaline began to fade, replaced by the gnawing cold of the Harmattan night. Then, they smelled it, smoke. Ahead, in a small clearing, a campfire flickered. 3 men sat around it, roasting a goat. The stolen cattle were tethered loosely to the trees nearby. The thieves looked relaxed, laughing, their guard down. They held only sticks and knives. There was not an AK-47 in sight. These were the early days, when the bandits were merely desperate criminals, not the warlords they would become. Bello signaled the advance. The Yang Sokai erupted from the darkness with a terrifying roar. Barawo! Barawo! Thief! Thief! The clash was chaotic and brutal. The thieves, caught off guard, scrambled for their weapons. One of them lunged at Bello with a dagger, but the young vigilante swung the stock of his Dane gun, connecting with the man's jaw with a sickening crunch. The thief went down. Another thief tried to untie the cattle to cause a stampede, but he was swarmed by 3 vigilantes. The sound of machetes hitting flesh and bone filled the clearing, grim and wet. It was over in minutes. 2 of the thieves lay dead in the dirt, their blood soaking into the dry earth. The third escaped into the darkness, leaving a trail of blood behind him. The Yang Sokai stood over the bodies, chests heaving. They had done it. They had defended their village. They rounded up the cattle, their fear replaced by a potent, intoxicating rush of victory. They bleed just like us, Bello said, looking down at the broken body of one of the thieves. Let this be a message to the forest. Moradun bites back. They returned to the village at dawn as heroes. The women ululated, their high-pitched trills cutting through the morning air. The men fired their Dane guns into the sky. Boom! Boom! A sound of defiance. The stolen cattle were returned to their owners. For a moment, it felt like justice. It felt like order had been restored by the people themselves. But as the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over the village, Musa watched the celebration with a pit in his stomach. He looked at the bodies of the thieves, which the vigilantes had dragged back to display at the market square, a gruesome warning. He pulled out his small, battered radio, tuning it to the BBC Hausa service. The crackling voice of the newscaster spoke of politics in Abuja, of oil prices, of a senator's wedding. There was no mention of Moradun. No mention of the theft, or the killing. In the capital, the newspapers ran their headlines. The Daily Trust, page 12, bottom corner. Local clash in Zamfara. Police restore order. Unconfirmed reports suggest a skirmish between local farmers and herdsmen in Moradun area over grazing routes. The police command has assured residents that the situation is under control and urges citizens not to take laws into their hands. 2 individuals are reported missing. Facebook comment thread, North needs peace group. User, Ahmed_Kano. These farmers are too aggressive. Why kill people over cows? Just report to the police. This jungle justice is barbaric. User, Zoria_girl. Police? Which police? You think police enter the bush? The villagers did well. Protect your property. User, Abuja_elites. This is just a small communal clash. It happens every dry season. It will pass. Let's focus on the upcoming elections. Back in Moradun, the celebration quieted down as evening approached. Bello sat cleaning his Dane gun, feeling like a king. He didn't know that the thief who escaped had not run away to hide. He had run deeper into the forest, to a camp much larger than the one they had raided. He was currently kneeling before a man whose name was not yet known to the world, a man who did not carry a stick, but a rusted AK-47 brought in from the borders of Libya. The victory in Moradun was not an end. It was an invitation. The village had drawn first blood, and the forest was hungry. The silence Musa had felt that morning was returning, but this time it felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. A year had passed since the incident in Moradun. The dust from that skirmish had settled, but the blood had watered a terrible seed. The market in Batsari was the heartbeat of the region. Every Tuesday, the dusty clearing transformed into a chaotic symphony of commerce. Traders from as far as Niger Republic crossed the porous borders to sell camels, grain, and textiles. The air smelled of roasting suya, diesel fumes, and raw livestock manure. It was loud, vibrant, and, most importantly, it was the economic lifeline for thousands. Alhaji Tanko sat in his stall, counting stacks of dirty naira notes. He was a grain merchant, a big man with a big laugh, though lately he laughed less. The rumors from the neighboring villages were bad. They whispered of men on motorcycles, hundreds of them, moving like locusts. They say the price of an AK-47 in the forest is now cheaper than a cow, his neighbor, a textile seller named Haruna, muttered, arranging his fabrics. Tanko scoffed, though his eyes darted to the tree line at the edge of the market. Rumors. Haruna. Fear sells better than rice these days. The governor was here last week. He said security is his top priority. Haruna didn't reply. He was looking at the horizon. A cloud of dust was rising, brown and angry, moving fast against the blue sky. Then came the sound. It wasn't the rumble of a lorry. It was a high-pitched, buzzing whine. Like a swarm of angry wasps, multiplied by 1,000. Motorcycles! Someone screamed. The market froze. The buzzing grew into a roar. From the dust cloud emerged the nightmare. They rode Chinese-made Boxer and Bajaj motorcycles. 3 men to a bike. They didn't wear uniforms. They wore rags, military camouflage stolen from dead soldiers, and dirty turbans wrapped around their faces, leaving only eyes visible, eyes red with tramadol and bloodlust. There were not 10 of them, as there had been in Moradun. There were 50. Then 100.
Kukfanta.
Lie down. The first shots rang out, not the dull thud of the Dane guns the villagers knew, but the sharp, rapid crack-crack-crack of automatic rifles. Panic detonated. The market dissolved into a stampede. Women threw their wares and ran, dragging children by their arms. Camels and cows, spooked by the noise, trampled through the stalls, crushing crates of tomatoes and yams. The local Yang Sokai vigilantes, stationed at the market entrance, tried to hold the line. Their leader, a brave man named Lawal, raised his single-barrel shotgun. He fired once, hitting a bandit on the lead bike. The bandit didn't even fall. The man behind him simply raised a rusty AK-47 and sprayed. Lawal and 3 others were cut down instantly, their bodies jerking as the high-velocity rounds tore through their charms and flesh. The disparity in power was sickening. It was the Iron Age meeting the modern era of warfare. The vigilantes were fighting with pipes, the bandits were fighting with war machines. The bandits didn't stop looting immediately. They rode through the market in a circling formation, firing indiscriminately into the stalls, into the fleeing crowd, into the livestock. They whooped and cheered, high on drugs and power. This wasn't just robbery. It was terrorism. They wanted to kill the spirit of the town. Tanko, the grain merchant, hid behind sacks of maize, pressing his face into the dirt. He watched through a gap in the bags as a bandit dismounted. The man walked over to a woman cowering by her yam stall. He didn't ask for money. He simply kicked over her stall, poured a jerrycan of fuel over the dry yams, and lit a match. "We own the harvest," the bandit shouted, his voice cracking. "Tell your governor. Tell your police. The forest eats everything." Within an hour, the Batsari market, a place that had stood for 50 years, was a smoking ruin. The bandits looted what they could carry: cash, phones, and new motorcycles. They tied abducted women to the backs of their bikes, their screams drowned out by the engines. As quickly as they came, they vanished back into the Rugu forest, leaving behind a silence broken only by the crackle of fire and the wailing of the survivors. The police arrived 4 hours later. They came in 2 pickup trucks, heavily armed but terrified. They took pictures of the bodies. They interviewed Tanko, who could barely speak. They didn't pursue the bandits. Everyone knew the forest was a death trap for anyone who didn't know the terrain. The Daily Sun, page 3. Bandits attack Katsina market. Casualties reported. Unknown gunmen stormed a weekly market in Batsari yesterday, dispersing traders and stealing food items. The police commissioner stated that tactical teams have been deployed to comb the forest. Residents are advised to remain calm. Twitter, X, Trends. #Secure the North. At Katsina activist, they didn't just steal food items. I was there. They burned people alive. They took 20 women. The police arrived when the ashes were cold. We are finished. #Batsari bleeds. 24 retweets, 5 likes. The tweet was buried under news about Big Brother Niger. At Lagos Analyst, why is the North always crying? You voted for this government. Deal with it. Restructure the country first. 500 retweets, 2,000 likes. The tragedy became a political football. At Gov spokesperson, the president condemns the act in strong terms. He has directed the security chiefs to fish out the perpetrators. We are on top of the situation. Replies, you have been on top of the situation for 2 years. Get down. That night, in the charred remains of the market, the survivors didn't sleep. They realized something terrifying. The bandits weren't just thieves anymore. They were an army. And the government in the capital, with its air-conditioned offices and sirens, felt like it existed on a different planet. The people of Batsari realized they were alone. And in the neighboring state of Kaduna, the church bells in the south were ringing for Sunday service, unaware that the storm was moving their way. The morning sun over Ungwan was soft, filtering through the high canopies of the mahogany trees that surrounded the village. Unlike the arid, open plains of Zamfara or the dusty markets of Katsina, southern Kaduna was lush, a place of rolling hills and green valleys. It was a place where the soil was dark and forgiving, and where faith was as deep as the roots of the ancient trees. It was Sunday. The air was filled not with the sound of commerce, but with music. Inside the St. Peter's Catholic Church, the choir was singing Korna Ta Yesu, the love of Jesus. The drums beat a steady rhythm, the women clapped, their colorful head wraps bobbing in unison, and the men swayed, their voices adding a deep, resonant bass to the melody. Father Joseph, a man in his late 50s with graying hair and a face worn smooth by years of smiling at babies and frowning at sinners, stood at the altar. He felt a deep sense of peace. The harvest had been good this year. The yam barns were full. The ginger crop, the gold of southern Kaduna, was drying in the sun. Yes, there were rumors of trouble in the far north, of bandits in Zamfara, but that was far away. Here, the biggest worry was the price of fertilizer and the upcoming harvest festival. Or so he thought. Outside the church, the birds suddenly stopped singing. The village dogs began to bark, a frantic, terrified sound that cut through the hymns. Then came the roar. It wasn't the wind. It was the sound of engines, dozens of them, tearing through the quiet village streets. The wooden doors of the church burst open, splintering inward. The music died instantly. Standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the bright morning light, was a man who looked like a nightmare. He was tall, incredibly tall, earning him the name that would soon be whispered in terror across the state. Dogo, the Tall One. He wore military fatigue stained with old blood and a red scarf tied around his head. In his hands, he held a general-purpose machine gun, GPMG, a weapon of war that belonged on a battlefield, not in a village church. Behind him, 50 men swarmed into the sanctuary. They didn't look like the desperate thieves of Moradun. They were organized. They moved with military precision, blocking the exits, their AK-47s leveled at the congregation.
Kobaya Kwanta.
Everyone down. Dogo roared. His voice was deep, scratching against the silence like gravel. Panic erupted. Mothers threw themselves over their children. Men scrambled under the pews. Father Joseph stood frozen at the altar, his hands raised, not in surrender, but in a futile gesture of protection. "Please," the priest shouted, his voice shaking. "This is the house of God. Take what you want, but do not hurt them." Dogo walked down the center aisle, his heavy boots thudding on the concrete floor. He kicked a drum set over, the crash echoing loudly. He stopped in front of the altar and looked at Father Joseph with eyes that held no soul, only a cold, calculating emptiness. "Your God is not here today, Malam," Dogo sneered. "Today, I am the one who decides who lives and who dies." He didn't want money. That was the terrifying difference. In Zamfara, they stole cows. In Katsina, they stole food. Here, Dogo wanted something else. He wanted to break them. "Where is the choir?" Dogo asked, turning to his men. The bandits moved into the crowd, dragging the young women and men of the choir from the floor. Screams filled the air, piercing and raw. A young man, barely 20, tried to pull his sister back.
Bang!
The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. The young man fell back, a hole in his chest, blood spraying onto the white altar cloth. The scream that tore from his sister's throat was inhuman. "Take them," Dogo commanded. They herded 20 members of the choir, the pride of the village, out the door. They tied their hands with heavy ropes. The bandits then turned their attention to the church itself. They piled hymnals, Bibles, and the wooden pews in the center of the aisle. "Light it," Dogo ordered. Father Joseph lunged forward.
"No,
please." A bandit struck him across the face with the butt of a rifle. The priest collapsed, blood pouring from his nose, his vision swimming. He watched through swollen eyes as the flames caught. The dry paper and varnished wood burned fast. Smoke began to fill the sanctuary, choking the sobbing congregation. "This is a message," Dogo shouted over the crackling fire, addressing the terrified people lying on the floor. "Tell the government. Tell the governor. The land belongs to us. If you want your children back, you will sell your land. You will sell your ginger. You will pay." They left as quickly as they had come, riding off into the hills, the weeping choir members thrown onto the backs of the motorcycles. They left behind a burning church, a dead boy, and a community shattered not just by violence, but by a violation of their sacred space. The villagers dragged the burning pews out, saving the structure of the church, but the damage was done. The sanctuary smelled of ash and blood. Father Joseph sat on the steps of the church, his white cassock stained red. He held the head of the weeping mother whose son had just been killed. He looked at the hills where the bandits had vanished. He knew the police station was 45 minutes away. He knew the army checkpoint was an hour away. He knew nobody was coming. Later that evening, the reality of the narrative war began. The National Herald, front page. Headline: Fresh communal clashes in southern Kaduna claim one life. Subtitle: Reprisal attacks suspected as tensions flare between locals and herdsmen. Police public relations officer stated that the incident was a misunderstanding that escalated into violence. The governor has imposed a 24-hour curfew on the affected local government area to prevent further breakdown of law and order. WhatsApp broadcast message, viral in the south. Breaking: Jihad in Kaduna. They have started burning churches. They killed 50 people today in Ungwan-Boro. The government is silent. Christians, wake up. This is an Islamization agenda. Forward this to 10 people or you are part of the problem. Twitter, X, Thread. At Kaduna Peace Watch, we need to be careful with language. Calling it jihad incites more violence. These are criminals. They attack mosques in Zamfara too. Let's not fall for their trap of division. Ripley. At Angry Youth. Shut up. Did they kidnap the imam? No. They took the choir. They burned the Bible. Stop being politically correct while we die. At Lagos Slay Queen, OMG, this is so sad, broken heart. Sending prayers and light. Posted from an iPhone 14 in Lekki. The reality. In the forest, Dogo sat by a fire, watching the terrified choir members huddled together in the dirt. He wasn't a jihadist in the way the WhatsApp messages claimed. He drank alcohol. He smoked weed. But he knew that by attacking a church, he would set the state on fire. He knew the politicians would argue about religion while he counted his ransom money. He was playing a game of chess, and the people of Nigeria were pawns. Back in Ungwan-Boro, the sun set on a village that would never be the same. The peace the police spoke of was the silence of the grave. The curfew didn't stop the bandits, it only locked the victims inside their homes, making them sitting ducks for the next time Dogo decided to visit. Father Joseph washed the blood from his hands in a plastic basin. The water turned pink. He looked at his reflection in the dark window. He realized then that prayer alone would not save them. They were sheep in a land of wolves, and the shepherds were asleep, or worse, they were dining with the wolves. You do not want to miss the escalation. If you're finding this story as gripping as I am, please hit that like button. It helps get this story out to more people. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications right now, so you're the first to see part 2. Click the video on your screen now to continue the story. I'll see you there.